All right, I guess we will get started now. Welcome to the Virtual College Exploration for Pennsylvania students, sponsored by the Pennsylvania Association for College Admission Counseling and StriveScan. PACAC is a nonprofit association comprised of more than 1,200 school counselors, college admission counselors, independent education consultants, and other professionals responsible for guiding students through the important transition from high school to post-secondary options. Thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is one of just many different sessions happening over the next few weeks, so be sure to check out the full schedule at pacac.org/virtual. And the presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at the same website. So now I would like to turn everything over to our presenters. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting us. I'm going to start sharing our PowerPoint slides, and no matter where you're joining us today, thank you for being here. I know that, I'd like to start off this time of year just reminding everyone that what the day is. So it is a Wednesday. It is just after 2 p.m. on the East Coast, and we're very happy to have you here. We hope that your family, yourself, you remain healthy and safe, and we're really appreciative that you decided to take some time this afternoon to learn a little bit more about liberal arts education. In fact, the benefits of a liberal arts education through the lens of 3 amazing institutions. And of course, I say that as biased, being employed by one of them. But I think after this presentation, you'll have a really strong sense of the different types of opportunities in Pennsylvania within the 3 lens of these schools that will also be applicable to any liberal arts college across the country. My name is Phil Moreno. I am the Regional Recruitment Director for Dickinson College, and I'm going to throw it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves, starting off with Becca.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Becca Larson. I'm the Regional Director of Admissions for Muhlenberg College. I'm super excited to share the liberal arts with you today.
And hi, everyone. My name's Courtney Best, and I'm one of the Senior Associate Directors of Admissions, and I'm also Coordinator of West Coast Recruitment. So after 14 years on campus, they moved me out west. But I'm so excited to be here with you, and I know we all hope to get all of your questions answered towards the end.
Absolutely. Thanks, Court. Thanks, Becca. You know, one of the things I think I always appreciate at the beginning of any presentation is knowing where we're headed, right? Particularly in this time of year. You know, it's important, I think, also just to frame the liberal arts very intentionally. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk a little bit about what is the liberal arts, right? I always like to joke, is a liberal arts institution have a bunch of Democrats painting on the quad? No, right? Those are liberal artists, right? We're going to talk specifically about what the liberal arts are, the specific approach to academics that these institutions bring to the table as an option for you. We're going to talk about intentionally their student communities, because that's something I think that we really want to highlight. Along with the big question that maybe a lot of parents have in this process is, what is it that a liberal arts major or a liberal arts graduate can get in the workforce? What are those outcomes? We'll talk specifically about how even our admissions processes are designed to be more holistic and allow you to kind of have a little bit more part of the process that you own, a little more agency in that. And then we're going to talk specifically about our own institutions. We'll give you about 3 minutes each about what we think make our institutions distinctive. And of course, at the end, some of the Q&A. So, you know, definitely use that Q&A to load up some questions now. Notice we don't have the chat feature, so we'll be using the Q&A to interact with you. But that's where we're headed. And I'm going to hand it off to my very able colleague, Courtney, to hit us with the first topic. Courtney?
Thanks, Phil. So I think it's really important to define what the liberal arts and sciences truly are, because I know when I was going through my process, it was a new term for me. So this idea of holistic approach to education, what does that mean? That means that our classes are often smaller in size and more discussion-based. You're going to have interdisciplinary courses that touch on a variety of different topics. And you'll have a great foundation kind of across the board. So in many different subjects, and then you'll be able to dive into a specific major or minor interest that you're passionate about. You're exposed to a lot of new ideas that may spark a new academic interest or a new hobby. You also have this idea of liberal being kind of this freedom of the mind, and you're learning how to learn in the arts, in the sciences, humanities, mathematics, and it's based on the idea of really educating this whole person and really preparing you for the world that meets you after college. So many liberal arts colleges, you are becoming a citizen of the world through broad-based learning. You learn how to learn, you learn how to think, you gain strong communication skills, you learn how to think critically and analyze problems. You're often finding your purpose, your own purpose. What do you want to do? What are you passionate about? You're also understanding how others see the world. So it's not just through your lens, but how are others experiencing this topic that you're studying? And you get to put it into that worldly context. And it is most definitely preparing you for any career. There's often this living learning component, and we're going to talk more about kind of campus life later, but you get to really fully participate in campus. You have close relationships with your faculty. They get to know you in the classroom and out of the classroom. You join clubs and activities that really help support what you're doing in the classroom, outside of the classroom. A lot of our schools have theme housing where you can live with people who have common interests. So again, it's in this living learning community in and out of the classroom. You're a really active member of the community and a vital part of campus. You may be a leader in your first year, or you get to kind of jump in and focus on your own personal academic goals and extracurricular experiences. So that's just kind of a large definition of what the liberal arts and science education means for a lot of our institutions. So I'm going to turn it over to Phil, and he's going to talk more about kind of the approaches to academics.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the things I think about after nearly 20 years in college admissions is how I would do this college search so differently. I myself went and grew up in a big state where the focus was on big schools, maybe like in Pennsylvania, right? And so I didn't really think intentionally that perhaps a big school, which is in a professional institution, because they want to know your major from the beginning, may not have been the best fit for me. Certainly, I think I owned it, and I was able to kind of be successful in the end. But if I had the chance to go back, I would really take a look at liberal arts colleges, maybe like you're doing now, either attending here live or watching this on video a little bit later. And I think that's the important thing to know, right, is that here in the United States, we are very privileged to have a number of different academic opportunities. And when you think about American higher education, it's important to know that there are kind of two distinct categories: professional institution and liberal arts institutions. You know, one is very focused. One is really kind of a derivative of after World War II of specialization. Another one, like Courtney mentioned, is much more comprehensive, right? We're trying to let you see 360 degrees of whatever major you end up choosing. Oftentimes, professional institutions tend to be large. In addition to liberal arts colleges, again, as we talk about community after this, are very designed to be intentionally small, and the value that comes from the opportunity to tackle subjects, right? And then the other thing that kind of neat that I think is kind of reflective of both types of institutions is the fact that they can be in urban settings, they can be in suburban settings, they can be rural. So if you are thinking geographically, you're going to be able to find each of these institutions in all of those types of cosmopolitan or less cosmopolitan areas. And it's also the opportunity to really do what we call interdisciplinary. The fact that very easy to liberal arts college to double major. In fact, oftentimes what interdisciplinary is a major that's already combining 2-3 different types of academic opportunities. And then certainly research is a part of it. In fact, as you'll see a little later, some of us are founded intentionally for that engagement. But what I'm often reminded too of the fact that when I was a 17-year-old, because I started college as a 17-year-old, I really didn't do what is essential to knowing if a liberal arts college is right for you. And that's knowing yourself, right? This is that really great opportunity if you have the chance to apply to college to get to know how you learn, right? A small school, would it be best for you, right? I thought when I was looking at colleges that I wanted to be an anonymous in a 200, 300 person lecture hall. right? That very rarely happens at a small liberal arts college. You know, and that's because liberal arts is the first type of education. In fact, when you look at the history of, you know, humanity, the first kinds of institutions set up by the Greeks and Romans were designed to be liberal artists, right? They were designed to be almost like the Renaissance era, where folks were learning from multiple things, right? You know, if we had more time, we'd talk a little bit about Henry Ford and specialization and how that really transformed America. But as you were thinking about yourself, right, you have to ask yourself, where do you learn best? Are you, you know, independent? You're okay with a big lecture hall? You know, are you looking for different opportunities, you know, within perhaps a larger institution, right? Are you looking for specific degrees? I often say, if you know you want nursing, right, and are not interested in just healthcare professions, then you should know that the opportunity there is at a professional institution. And then, as we talked about, large research institutions tend to be professional in nature, right? Penn State, Purdue, Michigan, they want to know your major from the beginning. They know, and they're going to track you. In fact, some of their majors and admissions requirements are going to be more competitive because they're specializing you, right? And essentially, in that academic approach at these institutions, you're taking 6 or 7 courses outside your major, and then you're going right into your major and never looking back. You might add a minor, you might add another major, but there really is no other opportunity to explore like you would have at smaller liberal arts colleges. And, you know, if you were to kind of look at the different opportunities within liberal arts colleges, I think it's also a space that you'll find, like some big names, certainly Pomona, you know, Gettysburg, Bowdoin, right, William and Mary, Skidmore, Swarthmore. These are places that have designed from the very beginning to be smaller in nature, to have curriculums that allow you to take 12 to 14 courses outside your major. And if you're thinking, wow, that's really exciting, then maybe liberal arts is for you. And if you're thinking, oh gosh, I have to take that many courses outside my major, why? Then that's half of the battle, right? But as I mentioned, in terms of geography and in terms of how the United States is developed, when you look at where they are, most liberal arts institutions do tend to be in the Northeast, tend to be on the East Coast. It's, again, partly because most of the United States doesn't get developed until the 1900s, and after World War II, a lot of the big schools were designed to be professional in nature. But, you know, you also have the advantage of being in Pennsylvania, where I like to joke, if you throw a rock, you're going to hit like 3 or 4 liberal arts institutions. And again, know that they're in different settings, right? They're in, you know, big cities like Philly or Pittsburgh. They're in small cities like Carlisle and Gettysburg and Allentown. So as you think about that opportunity, know that you're going to have pretty great options in terms of where you're headed. And then I think it's also kind of important to know that often liberal arts education is a platform to ongoing degrees, ongoing degree seeking opportunities, whether it's master's degrees, whether it's doctorates. You can see from this slide here that many of the places that send their students to earn doctorates come from liberal arts colleges: Harvey Mudd, Swarthmore, Reed, Carleton, Grinnell, Haverford, Williams, right? These are places that are known to have the academics like Muhlenberg, Gettysburg, and Dickinson College. And so if you're thinking about long-term trajectory, know that a liberal arts education can be that great foundation. But it also can be that great foundation if you're thinking, I'm going to do pre-med. Because you know that once you get to that approach, once you get to pre-med, you're not going to have a lot of opportunities to do other things, and you want to be a little bit more flexible in your curriculum, then that liberal arts education can be a great education. But then you think about where students end up, that's the other great thing. Students who are in the liberal arts end up in every single field, and we believe that they bring to those fields, again, that 360-degree view, that opportunity or that education that allows them to think outside the box. That's what liberal arts education is. And that's why, for, you know, since the beginning of education, the liberal arts have been a part of that educational opportunity here in the United States. But then, as you think about specifically the communities that are built in liberal arts, it's important to know that they are distinctive as well. And that's why Becca is going to talk a little bit more about the intentionality of liberal arts colleges and their communities.
Thanks so much, Phil. Phil and I have been presenting together for a long time, or Phil, Courtney, and I have been, and I feel like I always learn something new from Phil every time we present together. So thanks, Phil, for reminding me on so many reasons why the liberal arts are so incredible. And so while a lot of what Phil talked about centered around academics, another aspect of the liberal arts experience that is something that is incredibly intentional is the fact that learning happens just as much outside of the classroom as it does inside of the classroom. So many of the liberal arts colleges that you saw on those earlier slides are colleges that are primarily residential, right? So we are creating a living and learning experience for students at a liberal arts college where, they're not just challenging one another in the classroom, but they're learning from students who are coming from diverse backgrounds with diverse perspectives, who are bringing that all to the overall undergraduate experience. So the one thing that Phil, Courtney, and I have in common is that we are regional directors for our respective institutions. So we are based remotely and work with students who are traveling, for much greater distances to come to Pennsylvania for college. And so, again, that really speaks to the ways in which students learn from one another, and that you have students that are coming from all different geographic areas, to really gain, knowledge from one another, right? So, so in terms of campus community, right, and that can be seen in lots of different ways, but we'll talk a little bit about the residential experience, study abroad, extracurriculars, things like that. So as, liberal arts colleges, we are primarily residential. The three of the schools represented today, over 90% of students at our respective institutions live on campus. And so by having those students living on campus, it just creates a deeper sense of community. Again, the discourse that happens in the residence halls, in the dining halls, the students are interacting with one another. You have friends who are studying completely different academic areas, and so you can have conversations around sustainability or politics or art or culture, and all of these students are bringing something different to the table in those conversations. And so creating these living and learning communities, and giving students the experience of independent living, many of them for the first time, just creates a deep sense of community and helps enhance both the academic and just overall experience that a student is having on our respective campuses. You can head to the next slide, Phil. And beyond, the relationships that you get to build and the community that you get to form within the residence halls, our colleges are really all about engaging students extracurricularly and helping them develop as a whole person, right? So as a small college, because we don't have a ton of students on our campus, there's greater opportunities for students to pursue leadership in the organizations and clubs that they choose to join. And there's opportunities to get involved outside of your academic program. So, if you are a student who loves the arts, but you really want to study biology and go on to medical school at a liberal arts college, you can still audition for the plays. You can get involved in a sketch comedy group, right? You could be a student who's studying theater who's also really passionate about politics. So you could get involved in your local, college Democrats or college Republicans club, right? So the environment in a liberal arts college is built to give you the opportunity to explore a lot of different areas and find space to pursue all of that and still graduate in 4 years and really just get an incredible experience. It also gives you the opportunity to engage with the community, both the campus community, but also the local community, right? So, we really want students to get to know the city in which they're located, to maybe volunteer or to find ways to make the most out of their 4 years. If you're, stepping outside of your comfort zone, moving to a new city or moving to a new part of the state, you want to make the most of that in those 4 years. And so, our colleges are really designed to help students find ways to engage in different clubs and organizations, to hone their leadership skills, to pursue internships, which Courtney will talk about in a little bit, right? So again, it really goes back to what Phil was saying about that holistic, approach to learning, and that you're gaining just as much outside of the classroom as you are inside of the classroom. And we're all institutions that also very much stress and support, a student's desire to continue to step outside of their comfort zone and gain some cultural competencies by studying overseas. I know right now the idea of study abroad feels kind of, silly to talk about when we can barely imagine leaving our home, let alone heading out to another country. But certainly we hope that by the time you arrive on our respective campuses, that study abroad will be back in full force. Study abroad gives students the opportunity to continue to fulfill those liberal arts core requirements, but also gives you the opportunity to dive in, deeper into your major, maybe pursue an internship, to really just spend 3 or 4 months living in a new place, interacting with new people, gaining a toolbox of skills that's going to help you move forward professionally in this globalized world. So employers love to see a student who has studied abroad because they know that they have that global perspective that's so important, to the world in which we currently live. So these are just a few of the different kind of community and campus initiatives that help students really develop as a whole person. Courtney's going to spend some time talking about outcomes. So I'm going to pass things off to her.
Thanks, Becca. So yeah, all of this, your academics, what you're doing in and out of the classroom, just your whole 4 years. Attending a liberal arts school, you're really focused on graduating in 4 years, but also getting the courses you need and the life skills that you need to prepare you for a successful life after college. So this is something that we feel is truly important at the liberal arts and sciences, and you might start talking about career from day one. And so we have some national averages for you. At public schools, it's 33.3% that graduate in 4 years. At private colleges across the nation, it's 52.5%. And at our 3 specific Pennsylvania liberal arts schools, it's 85% of our students that are graduating within 4 years. So that end goal, that graduation, crossing that finish line is part of your experience, and everyone is really there to help support you to get you to that point. The other piece is, what are our students doing? And I think this is something that we all like to brag about, because if you look at where our graduates are going, especially that first year right out of college, between 90 and 98% of them have a job, or they're in a really strong graduate program. So these statistics tell us that most liberal arts institutions really care about your career development and making sure you find the right next step. So on this slide, you see that career offices can help you with everything from the basics of updating your resumes or your cover letters, or if you have a really important interview for an internship or a job, they can do mock interviews with you. So you feel prepared to talk about your strengths and what you'll bring to the table. All of our schools are really well known for our alumni connections. And so job shadowing with alumni or parents of current students, career immersion, where you're really diving into, let's go up to New York and see what the financial world is like and what role would you like within that. And then the internships. A lot of our schools will give you either credit, or if it's unpaid, there might be some support, especially over the summer, that you can have that internship experience, that real world experience that you can say, yes, this is something I want to do, I want to pursue. Building your skills, going back to those clubs and organizations that you're going to be a part of, just having those leadership positions on campus. You're going to be building these leadership skills and understanding how groups and organizations work. If you're thinking of law school or med school, a lot of our schools have really high acceptance rates into law school and med school. And so even getting the preparation of those LSATs or those standardized tests that you'll need to take, that is something that you'll see in a lot of our career offices. But just all of this, even in the virtual world, we've been hosting virtual job fairs and internship fairs because it's still important for our students to be connecting with people outside of our campuses. But these are things that our schools really focus on. So as you go on to see kind of who hires liberal arts students, just think about this. The average person graduating from college will have over 12 jobs in a lifespan. So liberal arts really prepares you to work anywhere. And liberal arts graduates are at some of the biggest companies like Google and JP Morgan, Vanguard, LinkedIn, and they're using the important skills that they learn from communication skills, critical thinking, analyzing problems, being a team player, being a self-starter. These are all things that you get to experience at a liberal arts school. We also produce students that are serving in the Peace Corps, and most of the students that are going on to teach all over the world through Fulbright scholarships. You might even get interviewed by someone who was a liberal arts graduate themselves. So the CEO of Starbucks, HBO, Whole Foods, Chipotle, YouTube, all of them, liberal arts graduates. With your liberal arts education, you're going to see it every day in your confidence, your ability to adapt, to appreciate different kinds of knowledge and different viewpoints. And lastly, when it comes down to money, a lot of schools, especially small private liberal arts schools, they tend to be a little bit more expensive, but we have great merit scholarships and we have great financial aid to help get you to college. But then afterwards, that's probably the biggest return on investment. Georgetown University did a study, and here you can see that students that went to highly, selective school, liberal arts schools like ours, they were making just as much as those who went to universities that had doctoral programs there. So not just undergraduate experiences, but master's and PhD experiences. So that whole idea of being able to look at your undergraduate experience and how it will impact you for the next 40 years, our students feel very prepared. They feel like they're ready for any sort of job placement, and then they feel like they have a strong support to get them there. So I'm going to turn it over to Becca to talk a little bit more about the admissions process and how to get to our schools.
Thanks so much, Courtney. So I know that we, have a mix of different ages in the space today. So some of you are in the thick of the admission process right now as you're high school seniors, and for those juniors or younger, you're kind of just getting started. But one thing to keep in mind within the admission process is that, I think with a liberal arts college, we really are getting to know our students very well throughout the admission process. So we use what's called a holistic review, which is a word that if you're not familiar with, you'll hear a lot about in the coming months and years. But that is really, a way in which we're able to evaluate a student as a whole person, right? So certainly we look at how a student has challenged themselves within the context of their school. If a student has standardized testing that they choose to submit, we're certainly looking at that. But beyond that, we're looking at a student's personal qualities and characteristics, the leadership roles they've taken on within their school, within their community, the letters of recommendation, what their teachers are saying about them, the quality of writing and the topic of their essay, right? So these are all components of a student's application that we are very strongly considering as we're evaluating applications. As many colleges have gone test optional this year due to limitations related to standardized testing, our three institutions have implemented test optional policies, well before schools had to go test optional this year. So again, we are really well versed in getting to know a student as an individual and helping them understand, where they're going to fit best, and then assessing on our end that a student would be the right academic, personal, fit for our institution. So we're looking at so many different things as we evaluate applications. We're also a school, schools that really value getting to know students throughout the admission process. So, small liberal arts colleges are more likely to conduct interviews, so they can really get to know you and learn a little bit more about your interests beyond what you're filling out in your common application or your coalition application, right? So we really value getting to know the applicant, getting to know the person behind the paper. And we're also a school that has, schools that have really individualized financial aid processes. And so, Courtney talked a little bit about the merit aid that, schools are able to give out and things like that. But, at a small school where you get to know your financial aid officer, where we really get to know you, we make sure that those financial aid packages are as customized to the individual and their financial needs as humanly possible. So, all of our process is deeply personalized. And so that's something that, liberal arts colleges are really proud of, is the ways in which we get to know students, the way we can support them, not only once they arrive on campus, but even in their journey to get to our campuses as they're an applicant. So, I can't speak for Courtney and Phil, but I know that certainly, this is my favorite part of the work that I do, is getting to know those students, meeting them at their high school, interviewing them, and so on. And so, before we kick things off with Q&A, we want to spend just a little bit of time sharing some information about our three respective colleges with you. And certainly, this is just scratching the surface. So if if you're interested and you want to attend any of our other virtual programming, we certainly welcome you to do so. But I think that Phil is kicking things off.
Thanks, Becca. I just had a tweet that we're here, just in case anyone wants to join us at the end. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you for learning a little bit more about the liberal arts and that approach to education that might just be the right fit for you as you do that assessment about your skills and where you could most thrive. And then as we think about institutionally within the liberal arts, what makes us distinctive, that's what we're going to be talking about now. And I get to start off because alphabetically, Dickinson just happens to be D. And so when you think about liberal arts education, I think you want to know that distinctively, Dickinson is founded in 1783 for engagement. We're literally the college that is founded 6 days after the American Revolution, because Harvard, Yale, William, and Mary aren't teaching their students to learn what they learned and go back into their communities and give back. That was essential for us as we started our journey as an academic institution, that students would engage the world, that they would give back to the common good. So that's why you see there on the right that now 100% of our students are guaranteed to have an internship before they graduate. That could be working on the first Chinese to Latin dictionary since the 1840s, or working on our college farm with a digester that makes the tractor equipment smell like French fries. And then as you think about the liberal arts, know that Dickinson is very invested in global. You can see that our small classes with 2,200 students, just a couple hours outside of Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. and Carlisle, also ends up being a place where students are very focused in on a global context. We have that opportunity to have a classroom where students are engaging with students from 52 different countries, 40 different states. And then in addition to that, they have the opportunity to choose from 13 languages. We offer not only those languages, but the opportunity to study abroad. And that's why you're seeing more than 60% of our graduates being able to study abroad. We even have 24-year-long programs that students can do. In total, aside from the 18 programs we run ourselves, there are 50 plus options that students can do and engage with, whether they're a computer science major, an environmental science major, or a pre-med major. And then the other thing that's going to make Dickinson distinctive because of our commitment is our investment in sustainability, which goes back to 1980, long before most of you were probably born. But this was an investment that the college made in thinking initially about environmental conservation. It's when we acquired the college farm. But now Dickinson, as you can see, ends up becoming one of those leaders in green thought, in the ability to choose a sustainability course that comes from 100 courses that come from 40 of our 45 majors. Dickinson is so infused with our curriculum with sustainability that that's going to be a pride point for us. In fact, we were able in March to be able to become one of the first small liberal arts colleges to be carbon neutral. So we're just going to go just down the highway to my colleague Courtney and talk a little bit more about Gettysburg. Thanks, Courtney.
Thanks. Yeah, and it is nice because some of our schools, we have joint programs. So if you're really liking what you're hearing, some of our schools, you can take classes at each other's schools, or we have like sustainable programs that we share. So that's what makes us so connected today. But I'm going to talk a little bit about Gettysburg College now. So for those of you who don't know, Gettysburg is located in the world famous town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. In fact, we had one of our presidential candidates in Gettysburg yesterday, Joe Biden, gave one of his speeches about how important it is to come together from Gettysburg. It is that type of town that a lot of leaders come to, but we have 2,600 amazing students from all over the world. And we really give our students the first 2 years to really figure out what they want to major, minor, or have special programs in. There are over 65 majors, minors, and special programs. Some of the more popular ones tend to be political science, economics, organization and management studies with business, biology, health sciences. But really you can pick and choose what you might want to double major in or minor in. We have an average class size of 17, so you really get to know your teachers. And our students tend to balance 4 classes and 3 or 4 clubs and activities. So they're very engaged on campus. We're Division III for athletics, and we're good. So definitely get in touch with the coach if you're thinking about playing a Division III sport. And like Phil, we have over 60% of our students that study abroad for a semester or more. Outcomes are big for us. So 98% of our students have a job or in graduate school within a year. So we're very proud of them. And some of our distinctive programs that I encourage you to look up after this are, we have the Sunderman Conservatory of Music. So any of you thinking that you might want to major or minor in music, definitely look into that. We have a 100-person marching band, so our football games are more fun. That's kind of unique at Division III. And then we have the Eisenhower Institute for Public Policy and Leadership. We have an office on campus and an office in Washington, D.C. So we do a lot of connections in Washington. Our students are very engaged. They are really interested in getting the most out of their 4 years, and they're a big part of our campus community and our traditions. So I really encourage you to take a look at some of our merit programs. We have a new one on civic engagement. That's a $40,000 scholarship. And then we have a ton of virtual events. So please feel free to sign up. And if you're a senior and you're thinking of applying to Gettysburg, I definitely encourage you to go to the website and sign up for an interview. And now we're going to finish it off with my good friend Becca from Muhlenberg.
Thanks so much, Courtney. So we are, you guessed it, a small liberal arts college. Muhlenberg is located in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So about 60 miles from Philly, 90 miles from New York City. And as you know, Courtney mentioned, in terms of different partnerships that small liberal arts colleges have, we are part of a consortium of colleges within the Lehigh Valley where students have the ability to cross-register. We also currently share a solar farm with Dickinson and Lafayette to work on our own sustainable energy, which is exciting. So we offer just under 40 majors at Muhlenberg. We are known for our theater program. We have a great program in theater and in dance. We do have a concentration in musical theater as well. But beyond that, we have really strong programs in the sciences. Our pre-med program and the research opportunities that exist within that are quite strong. There are 3 major hospitals within close proximity to campus, and we have partnerships with those hospitals for both clinical and research opportunities for those pre-med students. We've introduced some newer majors in the last couple of years. We have a major in public health. We also have a new major in sustainability studies and a minor in documentary storytelling. So interdisciplinary study is something that we really encourage students to do at Muhlenberg. About 1/3 of our students double major, another 1/3 pursue a major and a minor. So students are studying across academic disciplines. We're known as a school with a deep sense of community. As you see behind me on my virtual background, that red door, red is a Lutheran sign of welcoming. And so every single door on campus, with the exception of the door to the mail room, which I'm told is not allowed to be read for mail purposes, all of the doors are red on campus. So, we really are a place where students hold doors open for one another, where they really get to know one another and support one another. We send about 60% of our students abroad. 91% of students live on campus all 4 years. And we've been consistently ranked as having some of the top college food in the nation. So lots of really tasty meals coming out of Muhlenberg. We've been test optional since 1996 and have a wonderfully holistic review process, which I talked about a little bit earlier. So I want to make sure we have a little bit of time to answer some of the questions that have come in, but certainly happy to answer any Muhlenberg questions that you have. So I just want to remind you all to use that Q&A feature that you see. If any questions come in, you can ask specific questions about our respective institutions or anything about the schools or anything about the presentation that we've talked about. So the first question we have is about academic advising, which I think is just a really awesome question. And I think, it might look a little bit different at each liberal arts institution, but I think the big takeaway here, and I'll have each of my colleagues kind of share what their advising system looks like, but because our schools are small and because you really get to know your faculty and they get to know you, there's so much support in helping students figure out what their academic path is. You don't have to make those decisions on your own if you're undecided about your major or you're thinking about changing your major. I, as a liberal arts grad, changed my major I probably changed it like 3 or 4 times in my head before I actually declared a major on paper. And then even once that happened, stuff moved around a little bit, right? But I had so many people to support me, to bounce those ideas off of, to make sure that I could still graduate in 4 years, to make sure, that I could still study abroad and accomplish all of the goals that I wanted to accomplish, right? So know that there's so many people who are there to support you. So I'll share a bit about academic advising at Muhlenberg, and then I'll pass things off to my colleagues. Every student, when they start registering for classes, is assigned a first-year advisor. Generally speaking, that advisor will be a faculty member who has, in a course of study or is studying an area that is of interest to the student, right? So if you're leaning maybe towards the humanities or the social science, we'll try to, make sure you have an academic advisor in that category. They will also teach the students first-year seminar, so you get to know that advisor in an academic context as well. And then they will guide you through your academic path until you declare a major, at which point you'll find an academic advisor within your department. So again, even once a student declares their major, and they might have an academic advisor within, psychology or sociology or whatever it is that they're studying, I think that first year advisor generally is someone who they still keep, in touch with, who still, supports and encourages their academic path. And then we also have academic advisors for students who are interested in pursuing a specific type of pre-professional track, right? So if you're pre-med or pre-law, to have another person who kind of knows the path that you need to take to make sure that you're fulfilling the necessary prereqs and preparing for that next step in your academic journey. Beyond that, I think students have a lot of like unofficial academic advisors in terms of just other faculty or even, administrators or staff members who are there to support and champion them. So there's lots of both official and unofficial advisors, and your academic experience is not something that happens in a vacuum. There's so many people who are there for you, certainly at Muhlenberg, but I think that could be expanded to all of the 3 institutions represented today. But Courtney, do you want to share a little bit about advising at Gettysburg?
I could just say ditto, because pretty much everything Becca said is very similar at Gettysburg. I will say, before you get to campus, we have you choose your courses in June before you get to campus to start your first year. So there are members of our academic advising team and faculty who volunteer to talk to you about even selecting your first courses for your fall semester. Like Becca, your first year advisor most often will be teaching your first year seminar, and they'll have you in another class, so they get to see you in the classroom 3 days a week, in addition to getting to know you personally. We have our students meeting with their advisors or asking academic advising questions this week, because our first years are signing up for courses for next semester next week. So even as you go through sophomore, junior, and senior year, like Becca said, if you decide on a major or a minor or a double major or a double minor, you might have 2 to 4 faculty advisors on paper, but like Becca was saying, like your faculty just become your mentors and your advisors. So you might really gravitate towards one faculty member who on paper is not your advisor, but they're there to help you navigate the curriculum within that department.
Yeah, I mean, again, lots of ditto in terms of the answer for Dickinson. And I think the thing to know about Dickinson, though, is that we're very intentional, right? It's the reason we had been test optional since 1994. It's the reason that we'll be test blind or test free this year. And just like with advising, what we have provided or kind of done is create a more systematic program with our college for advising, internships, and lifelong career development. So the umbrella of all of that advising happens in an office for us that has faculty members who are the advisors, who has someone called a college dean that actually helps the student pull back and look for experiential opportunities on top of the faculty interactions that you're going to hear, just like at Muhlenberg and Gettysburg. And then in our remaining time left, 2 minutes left, I think, is there anything, maybe parting words that we want to leave with? I think, I'll start off and then head over to Becca and then let Gettysburg, Courtney chime in. But I think my advice to you is this is already a process that is already kind of can be difficult. So take time for yourself. Certainly get yourself off the screen if you can just after this, and know that we're here for you. Know that we're going to be available to you, whether it's through email, through virtual visits, when you need us. This process will take time, but if you do it incrementally, if you do it purposefully, you're going to find a great place. It may not be Dickinson, it may not be one of the other institutions, but you're going to do well. Becca?
Those are tough parting words to follow, Phil. They were so well said. You know, I think right now in the virtual space that we're all in, it feels almost overwhelming, the amount of virtual options that now exist. When I think about where we were, you know, back in April as we were kind of rolling out virtual programs, now it seems as though every college has, you know, 14 different options in addition to, you know, what PACAC is doing and all of these different programs, which is awesome, right? But I think sometimes it can feel overwhelming and you can feel unsure of what to do. So know that, you know, like Phil said, you want to pace yourself, take some time to take care of yourself. But, you know that as schools that value demonstrated interest, right, where we really love when students take the time to connect with us, we're not placing any of these particular, you know, ways to engage with us above others, right? So don't feel pressure to come and visit campus if colleges are open for tours, if that's not something that you feel comfortable with, right? So do whatever you feel is kind of best for you in the current climate that we're in, and know that that's something that colleges are going to appreciate. Taking the time to attend a virtual info session or to email an admission rep, if that's what you're capable of doing, that's an awesome first step. So, so good luck and lean on us, right? Ask us questions. Please use us as a resource because we are more than happy to help. And I'll pass things off to Courtney.
We're right at the time, so I'm going to be real quick. We're going to read your application with compassion. And if for those of you who weren't able to take the SAT or ACT, that's okay. It's a world pandemic and we're all impacted by that, but our schools will read your application with or without that score. Most of our merit scholarships will also be able to consider you without a test score, but good luck with this process and we're here for you.
Bye, everyone.
So thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon, and thank you to our panelists for such a great wealth of information. I hope you all got something useful out of this. When you close this window, you will get a link to a very quick 4-question survey. It would be greatly appreciated if you could give any feedback that you may have. And a reminder that this is just one of many sessions being hosted over this program. So check at pacac.org/virtual. And you can also use that website to see a recording of this meeting and all other meetings, usually about a week after they air. So thank you very much and have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye-bye.